Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to tackle a really provocative idea from our source material, all about the marriage license. You know, that piece of paper most of us just see as a normal step? Well, this perspective argues it's something entirely different, something that challenges everything we think we know about it.
All right, let's just jump right in with the big question our source wants us to ask. Why exactly do you need the government's permission to get married? I mean, think about it. Why does the state believe it has the right to sell you a license for something so deeply personal? This one question is really the key to unlocking this whole argument. So to really get where this argument is coming from, we've got to look at the history. And it's probably not the history you think it is. The source makes this point really clear. Marriage is ancient. It's been around forever, as this bond between people, their community, maybe their God. The state? Well, the state is the new kid on the block, showing up way late to the party and suddenly claiming it runs the whole thing.
Okay, so that brings us to our first section. We're going to look at how this all got started, beginning with where the marriage license even came from. Because according to this perspective, it's not some timeless tradition. No, it's actually a pretty recent invention, and it was created for a very specific reason.
And wow, look at this timeline. It really lays out the argument, doesn't it? For thousands of years, no state involvement. Then, bam, in the 1800s, the license shows up, and the key argument here is that it wasn't created to celebrate or protect marriage. It was created to control it. It started as a way to regulate people, then became a tool to exclude certain groups, and now it's about money and legal benefits. So here's the absolute gut punch of the argument. The license wasn't about protecting the sanctity of marriage. It was a tool of control. The source points the finger directly at things like laws preventing interracial marriage and the whole eugenics movement. The license was literally the paperwork used to enforce a really specific and, often discriminatory social agenda. That was its job.
And all that history leads us right to the core of the legal argument, which is this. When you get a marriage license, you're not just making a commitment to your partner. You're actually signing a binding three-way contract with the state as the third person in your marriage.
Yeah, the argument is that this license isn't just a piece of paper for your scrapbook. It legally changes everything about your relationship. It stops being just a record of an event and becomes this legal tool that gives the government actual power, actual jurisdiction over your family.
And that word jurisdiction has real teeth. It's not some abstract legal term. According to the source, it means the state now gets the final say over the most private, intimate parts of your life. It can literally override decisions that you thought were just between you, your partner, and your community. And here's exactly what that looks like in the real world. Suddenly, the state has authority over your union itself, how and when you can get divorced. It has authority over your stuff, how your property gets split up. And, most critically, authority over your kids, who gets custody, who pays support. It transforms what might have been a private promise into a state-regulated contract.
This quote from our source just says it all, doesn't it? You go from a private covenant to a government-regulated civil contract. The claim is that the moment you sign that license, you are willingly inviting the state to be a permanent third party in your marriage.
All right, now we're getting into what is maybe the most controversial part of this whole argument. This is where the source reframes the entire idea of marriage in, commercial terms. It's basically saying the whole thing is a transaction.
So look at this comparison. The source paints a really clear picture here. On one side, you have a covenant marriage, something you make. It's about relationship, community, maybe faith. On the other side, you have a state-licensed marriage, a contract you buy. It's transactional, all about legal status and financial perks. And the author uses some incredibly strong language to make this point. The argument is that when you start marrying for the benefits, the tax breaks, the insurance, you've essentially corrupted the whole point of marriage. And the state, by offering those benefits you can see what the quote says. Now, to be clear, when the source uses that word, it's defining it in a very specific way. It's not just about sex. It's about the act of trading anything sacred, a relationship, a covenant, intimacy, for material gain. And the argument is that the state encourages this by dangling all these financial incentives only for couples who buy a license.
This right here shows a total flip-flop in how things work. Think about it. In the old model, like with the dowry, families put money into the new couple to help them get started. It was an investment. In the modern model, the couple has to pay the state just for permission. The flow of money is completely reversed, from putting in to taking out.
Okay, so if getting married isn't a privilege the government grants you,
Then what is it? Well, according to this argument, it's a fundamental, unalienable right, something you're born with, not something you have to buy.
The logic goes like this. If you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, how can you have those things without the right to form a family? The argument is that the right to marry is baked into the very idea of human liberty. It's not an add-on the government gets to sell you.
And to make this point super clear, the source has us do a little thought experiment. You don't need a license to pray, right? Can you imagine the government trying to sell you a prayer license? We'd all agree that's insane.
Or how about this one? You don't need a license to speak your mind. The idea of having to pay a fee for permission to say what you think, that's the definition of tyranny. It's a right you just have. So, that brings us to the million-dollar question. If marriage is a fundamental right, just like speech and religion, and for many people it is a religious act, then why is it treated so differently? Why is this the one right you have to buy a permission slip for?
So what's the proposed solution here? Well, it's pretty radical. The idea is to completely separate church, or just the sacred act of marriage, and state. Let people get married in their communities, in their faiths, however they choose. And if you want legal recognition, make it an optional, voluntary civil contract. No more mandatory license, no more financial incentives, and any record-keeping should be free registration, not a paid permission slip. So when you boil it all down, the conclusion from this source is that the whole system is built on a lie. The state, it argues, basically convinced everyone that you need its permission to get married, and then it started charging you for that permission. It created a need that never existed before.
And we're going to leave you with this final thought from the source. It's a powerful one, right? A really provocative idea that forces you to look at something we all take for granted and ask, wait a minute, is this a right I've always had, or is it a privilege that I'm buying from the government?